Good evening, Holliston. Welcome to the January 4th, 2021 Select Board meeting. Happy New Year to you all. This evening we have a modest agenda, and we will start, as we always do, with Fire Chief, Emergency Management Director Mike Cassidy. If he would approach the table and give us an update. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening. Happy New Year.
You as well.
And you do realize that regardless of how robust or modest your agenda is, I always somehow manage to end your year for half an hour to 45 minutes. So.
Time well spent, Mike.
I agree. Thank you. We did have some good news today. I was able to update the website 3 different times because we kept having cases coming off. So, Chris, if you want to go to our first slide there. And this really does go to Ms. Hines' question last week when she said there have been times in our history where we've had bulk removals of cases. Do you anticipate that coming up? And that's what happened today. We had 3 different chunks of cases that came off, for a total of over 70 cases coming off our active list today. Mm-hmm. So since last week, we've had 46 additional cases total. We have had 71 recovered, no change to the COVID-related fatalities. We currently have 78 active cases, so we're back below 100. I'm very pleased to report that. And all of our cases are spread out over 55 unique addresses. We still have some clusters, both at single-family homes as well as a couple of clusters at multifamily dwellings. We're down to just 1 cluster at the elderly housing complex, and as has been the case historically for many weeks, the majority of our cases are single cases at single-family homes.
Just FYI, those numbers don't add up to 55. It's 56. If that's okay.
Data not verified. It's
what an MIT expression.
The other side of the river, please. It is. It's an evolving data set.
Gotcha.
I will double check.
That's all right.
And verify.
Gotcha. Close enough for government work, right?
That's an excellent expression. So next slide, Chris. Oops, we're trailing the arrow up on the right. You will see our cases do continue to trend the way everybody else's cases are trending. But again, I'm very pleased that we had a bunch of cases come off. Next slide. In terms of our age demographic, I know last week there was a question about what was our total number when I was reporting percentages. Our largest increase this past week were 30 to 39 age range with a 29% increase. The 50 to 59 and 10 to 19 who both saw a 27% increase. And then coming in slightly behind was the 60 to 69 age range, which had a 22% increase. Again, we're very pleased that the 90 plus for another consecutive week did not have any change. So that's good that number is staying the same because they are definitely an at-risk population. If we look at our percent positivity, we continue to trend below the state, but still trending upward. And as I mentioned in, I believe, my weekly summary report, our percent positivity continuing to go up and continuing to be over 5 is the confluence of 2 different factors. Again, additional positive cases during the 14-day period, as well as lower test numbers. And part of the reason that we have lower test numbers during that 14-day period is because that 14-day period included the December 17 nor'easter as well as Christmas. So there was not as much testing taking place during that 14-day period. We are not alone when you look at the other cities and towns around us. Next slide. There are lots and lots of our neighbors who are either in the yellow or the red. We've been in the red again for a couple weeks. We continue to focus on our social media messaging. Next slide. Reminding people that if they traveled over the holidays, even after we urge them to just celebrate with their household, they are subject to the travel order if they were outside of the Commonwealth, and they need to complete the form, they need to do the testing, and they need to quarantine in accordance with the state guidance. We did also remind folks, next slide, the importance of not only signing up for the state alerts, but also we've been reminding them to sign up for the alerts through the town, for the Blackboard. The governor's temporary executive order, next slide, which restricted occupancy of certain business sectors, expires at noon on Sunday, January 10th. The governor has indicated that by the end of the week, he will let the public know whether or not that will be extended or whether those temporary orders will expire at noon on Sunday. There's been one change, next slide, to the vaccination priority list. They did announce that after receiving some guidance from the CDC regarding the vaccination rollout, they're going to move the 75-plus age range within the phase 2, so that it is up closer to the individuals with 2 or more comorbidities, just because they recognize at the national level that research has suggested that individuals over 75 are at higher risk, therefore they're going to move those up within a higher step on phase 2, and that graphic will be updated shortly.
Okay, that graphic will be updated.
That graphic will be updated shortly. It has not been updated yet. It was verbally announced by the governor today, but it has not made it to their graphic artist yet. And
Mike, pause for a moment if you don't mind.
I'm happy to come up for air.
With your my colleague's permission. A little bit on the news about the phase 1 rollout of the vaccines, and some people are frustrated with it. From a Holliston's perspective, for the folks that are under phase 1,
yes,
first responders, long-term care, and so forth, can you report to us how successful they are getting access to the vaccine?
Sure. So COVID-facing healthcare workers, for the most part, have been able to avail themselves through their employer of the first round. And many of them, within even as soon as the next week, will likely be getting their second dose of the vaccine. Depending on the manufacturer, the Pfizer vaccine has a 21-day gap between shots 1 and 2. The Moderna has a 28-day gap. Moderna hasn't been in the Commonwealth long enough that dose 2 of the Moderna would be ready yet. But COVID-facing healthcare workers, and that healthcare worker doesn't necessarily mean a clinical employee. It could be a housekeeping individual who is exposed to COVID patients within a healthcare setting. It could be a receptionist who is doing intake. So there's a broad definition of what healthcare worker, COVID-facing healthcare employees are. Those folks are finding good success. The next phase in terms of the congregate care setting, which would be our long-term care facility in town, that's really not through the state program. That's part of a federal partnership with CVS and Walgreens that will be taking care of our long-term care facility. And then it's the first responders who are eagerly awaiting the next round, or the next step within phase 1. And the regional sites will be up and live on the week of January 11th, and the mass vaccination sites, which will be state-led, will be up and ready January 18th. They expect later this week to have the website be live that will allow folks to make appointments to be able to go, because they are anticipating at those mass vaccination sites, which will be overseen by the state, to be able to do upwards of 2,000 shots per day at those sites.
The idea is that the individuals go to one of these 2 locations. It's not as though technicians from CVS or Walgreens
the pharmacies
are coming to town halls or...
Pharmacies are not involved in the first responder vaccination. So there are 3 different ways that first responders can avail themselves. The first option is agencies which are large enough and have the capacity can vaccinate their own employees. And you see that with a lot of private ambulance companies, your transformative healthcare, and some of the big names are able to do their own people. And in communities where they have a contract with a specific municipality to provide the 911 ambulance service, they are also picking up the police and fire from those communities with whom they're working on a daily basis. The second option was regional boards of health, or boards of health on a regional basis, we're collaborating together to get that critical mass that we talked a couple weeks ago of needing to be able to do at least 200 first responders, and they needed to have the storage capacity, they needed to have the ability to administer the shots, they needed to have the ability to log into the state system that the shot was administered, and they needed to be able to observe the people. So it wasn't just a drive-through capability, you needed to be able to watch folks for 15 to 30 minutes after they got the shot. There are over 60, I believe the number that I heard on our conference call last Thursday from the state was there are currently 62 regional sites that have been identified. And then the third option, which is what our local first responders will avail themselves of, is the mass vaccination sites, which are going to be coordinated by the state. They haven't officially announced those locations yet. We have a general idea of where several of them are going to be.
Gillette, blah, blah, blah.
Right, but we don't want to officially say that until it's on the state website. But those will be available to our personnel, and we've already communicated that out to our
And that's about a week, 2 weeks out.
Week of the 18th is when they're looking at going live with that option.
Sorry for the interruption.
No,
Thank you.
I'm happy to. There have been a lot of moving parts in the last couple of weeks, having a couple holidays interspersed there as they're trying to do the rollout. The delivery was a challenge, but we're working our way through that. And just a reminder that in the midst of all of these other activities that we're doing and seeing a surge in patients, next slide. I don't normally focus on calendar year activity. Normally I wait and do a roll-up at the end of the fiscal year. But looking at our logs for calendar year 2020, we did see over 1,500 incidents at the fire department, 953 fire incidents, over 1,000 medical incidents, and we continue to train. A couple weeks ago, I was late to your meeting because I was involved in an elevator rescue, and some of our personnel tonight were planning on doing elevator rescue training, just to make sure that it's not a skill that we use on a regular basis. We want to make sure that we're fresh and that we learn from prior incidents. So we continue to do the work. The police continue to go to calls. The DPW continues to clear the streets and respond to water main breaks. So local government is still working in the midst of everything else that's going on. One historical reminder, just that our headlines today don't look too different from the headlines in October of 1918, and we just hope that people will learn the lessons of history and will listen to the advice of local government and public health officials who keep we've been on the same message since March. Wash your hands, avoid crowds, don't touch your face, stay away from people, avoid crowds, just stay with your own household, keep your distance. We've got all of these messaging that we've been talking about, but as we've talked about many times at this table before, some people are making individual choices which are jeopardizing the health and safety of their family, their neighbors, their friends, potentially their workplace, their school environment. But one good news, next slide. I have analyzed the 176 cases that have come in since our special town meeting on December 5th. And there is no correlation of any spread based on individuals who attended the town meeting and cases that we have had in town. So, again, thank you for everyone that came out on December 5th in the middle of the snowstorm and spaced properly and did the directional travel and came in one corridor and exited from another and sat distant from other people. It worked.
Two, I think you had similar results from the
July 20th. Yes, absolutely. We didn't have as many cases to compare addresses following July 20th as we did in this last month. But yes, we have two successful town meetings under our belt where we were able to put the proper mitigation and planning in place to run a safe operation.
Congratulations on that.
It's a group effort, but thank you. With that, I will take questions.
Sarah.
Thanks again. Happy New Year. We enjoy talking to you. We wish we could stop.
But it keeps coming up at the end of our meetings with those.
I know.
So
just quick, the data that we get for the age groups.
Yes.
So, me being a data guy, put together just kind of like looking at a couple different periods. So basically since town meeting, December 3rd. And a couple things jumped out at me. We've gone up 174 cases since December 3rd, the reporting on December 3rd. Obviously, there's a little noise in here, so, it's not a perfect number. But one of the things that really jumped out at me is the age groups that had the largest increase since December 3rd. The one that really jumps out is the 40 to 49, is up 112%.
Yes.
It went from 25 to 53. And the other one that went up considerably was the 0 to 9.
Yes.
It went up 88%, from 16 to 30. So I guess my question for you is, I'm certain that we only have limited amounts of information and things like that. Do you have any sense of what could be driving those particular numbers? Is it we're testing these people more regularly? Is it just community spread because people are going to other houses and things like that? I just found it interesting that those are the two age groups with most substantial. Everybody else is about, they're still up, 60% plus, but they're more in line with the entire town. But those two really were like almost 40 to 49 is almost double.
Sure.
67 was.
Excellent question. So the 40 to 49, as well as the 30 to 39, largely are due to the informal gatherings that we've talked a lot about. Neighbors gathering with neighbors. As I look at the addresses as they come in, and I start to get 2 or 3 on a particular street, it becomes readily apparent to me that we've got informal gatherings, and whether it's in the yard across, each other at the fire pit, or whether it's actually in people's homes, it's clear that there's spread taking place there. And then that's contributing to some of the clusters, the family clusters. And so those folks are then spreading it downward to a child. It's not often that it's the child spreading it to the adult.
Okay. So is what you're saying, like some of this, like through contact tracing and things like that, we're seeing a little bit of like community in the sense of like neighborhood spread? We're seeing, we are seeing neighborhood spread.
Yes. Absolutely.
Disturbing and frustrating after all this time that we're still seeing it. I think people are frustrated, I understand.
Right.
Feeling holed up, but that doesn't mean we can't stay vigilant about this.
And it's the community spread in the areas where you normally wouldn't be thinking. Like in a residential neighborhood, you wouldn't normally be thinking that you'd have that spread. You would be looking for it in the multifamily dwellings, the apartment buildings with 60 units. You would be expecting that when one person gets it, people on each side of them, or at the elderly housing complex, when one person in a building with 8 units gets it, 2 or 3 other units in that building are likely going to get it.
But we're seeing those kinds of things are, it's still happening, but it's a little bit.
Not with the same frequency.
Yeah, and the numbers, the lowest spread are from the highest age groups, actually.
Correct. And a lot of it is, I don't want to say fear-based, but it's people with a certain life experience that tend to sometimes trust government. And when the public health official says, stay home, don't go out, get somebody to deliver your groceries, don't see your family,
They do that.
They do all of those things.
So, I don't know what else to say, except, we have to continue to be vigilant. It's frustrating.
Right, and as delighted as I am to come to you today and tell you that we were, very excited to take 71 cases off today, I expect that tomorrow and the next day, we will start to get more cases added back on. But right now, what we're seeing is the fact that a lot of testing sites weren't open on Friday because it was a holiday. And so new test results haven't come back and haven't been entered into the Maven system. And we're going to get a big data dump tomorrow and Wednesday reflecting test results that come back from Saturday, Sunday. And not every testing location does test on the weekends. So again, we'll start to see results from
We get that live.
Thursday's testing, right.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Tina?
So you said 2 things I found, well, you say a lot that's very interesting, not bad for Harvard grad, I'll say. Your comment about no correlation between town meeting and subsequent cases.
Yes.
I think is incredibly significant to be shared up to Representative Dykma and Senate President Spilka's offices. But if you haven't already communicated that to them, I think that's really important, because I know that at that level there are discussions going on in regards to legislation for FY22, for town meeting, for steps that need to be taken in order to have another round of all of this next year. And I think they're pretty, my understanding is they're pretty active in discussing it, at least, and I think it's really valuable. I think Holliston may stand out as a unique town in that we've continued to hold town meeting the way we have, and we have such positive results. So, again, I'd encourage you to share this if you haven't already with those two offices.
I have not. I just finished, again, cross-referencing unique addresses late this afternoon, but I absolutely will share that out with the both offices. I actually was texting back and forth with the representative just as this meeting was beginning.
Okay. Yeah, again, it may be something that they can bring to some of the discussions that they're going to participate in. That would be valuable. Then the other comment that I wanted to make, it's really a question, is given what you had to say in response to Ben's questions, do you see a value in identifying homeowners associations and reaching out to, they all have presidents, they all have boards, if you have an established homeowners association, and sharing more specific information about some of the trends that you're seeing? I've not heard you present that information before. And I think that is maybe perhaps another way, if we have that knowledge or list of a variety of different homeowners associations, that may be an avenue to get information directly out to a neighborhood that may be, actively having these types of get-togethers. We all understand why people are doing this. I mean, no one is doing it out of any malevolent or irresponsible way of viewing this, but perhaps that level of awareness needs to be directly communicated to a homeowners association and shared throughout that neighborhood, or for any neighborhood. I'm not suggesting we target one. I grew up in a neighborhood that had a homeowners association, and I know the email chains that go on there. I don't live in one that has one now, but I know they exist throughout Holliston. And again, that may be a very direct way to say certain activities that we're seeing within these neighborhoods are contributing to the clusters that we're seeing within the town. We want you just to be aware that the decisions that you make as a social unit have a broad impact on the ability of our kids to go to school. We really want you to be mindful of that. That would be one suggestion I would make, and that's all I have.
I'd be happy to reach out to any association that exists. Looking at the streets where I had the pockets, most of them, based on my knowledge, would not have homeowners associations. That would be more loose, informal, but I will double-check the list, and if I see any, and again, this can be part of our continued outreach efforts. If we know that a homeowners association, even if they hadn't had a pocket, we can still remind them.
Yeah, and the other way would be perhaps Facebook pages. I don't know how you'd access that, but I know my neighborhood does have a Facebook page for our, for people who live in our neighborhood, and that may be another way. If there's a message that could go out, that could be shared. I don't know how you'd get it out to those community members who could be admin for those Facebook pages, but
it could be time for another Blackboard message, and just with a reminder that if you're part of an association or an email chain in your neighborhood, pass this on, forward it if people aren't signed up for Blackboard.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
We had talked at one point about message boards.
Yes, and I know that we ordered some based on some funding that was authorized at the special town meeting, and I know that they've been used to communicate the Drive 25. I know they've been communicating small ass wear a mask. So yes, we can absolutely continue to remind folks.
I think you were also considering renting them.
Yes, rental was something.
To Ms. Hines' point, is it time to revisit that? To spread that neighborhood alert? Is that something that can be discussed?
We can absolutely discuss it. I'm concerned about message fatigue, and this is why with the various message signboards that we've got downtown and on different ends of town, we're changing the message frequently.
I agree with you, but let me push back just a moment. I'm going to go out on a limb and say we are in the middle of the worst. And I believe with vaccination schedules over the next 6 months or so, the light is at the end of the tunnel. But between now and then, message fatigue is one thing. I think it'd be hard for me to sit here and think that we didn't do enough to constantly harangue, harass, and remind you, stop doing this. Ben just read numbers that tell me that there's a vibrant class of people in Holliston that are making decisions regularly that put themselves and the children in jeopardy. And I'm all for the fatigue if that's what it's going to take them to stop doing it. So personally, I don't know if my colleagues are in on this, but I would be up for renting several more message boards that just park them in the major neighborhoods and say, stop. Just please stop. You know, you guys got to get through the next couple of months, get your vaccines on board, and see through this year. I mean, this is the time to get a little bit more vigilant, in my opinion.
John, I'll just piggyback on what you just said, and I mean, our area hospitals are at capacity in terms of the number of COVID patients, and so that should be deeply concerning to anybody. And this is no surprise. We're seeing it in worse situations throughout the country, but it's very real. If you need an ambulance ride to the hospital right now for anything, you're going to find yourself in the middle of a pretty dire situation in an area hospital, and I don't know how much the general healthy community, I feel awful putting this fear out there, I don't mean to at all, but I'm 100% with John and Ben as well, and probably everybody here in this room, that this is a moment of crisis in our country.
We're at a tipping point.
Yeah, and to follow up on what Ms. Hines said, she and I had some exchanges with in the last week or two, with regards to what is our experience. As, you know, I mentioned earlier, we continue to do what we've always done, which is respond to fire calls, respond to medicals. And as we respond to medical emergencies, we're taking people in the hospital, not COVID patients, just your regular medical emergencies that continue to happen. There's the backlog in ED. So we get to the hospital with a patient. There isn't a gurney for us to transfer our patient to. Our ambulance is tied up at the hospital longer. They're getting back in service and getting back to town is impacted. And so there's this cascading impact of not only is there a surge at the hospital, not only is there, you know, increased utilization of ICUs and ventilators, but, you know, just even a bed in the emergency room, if you fall down and injure your arm, you know, there's going to be a wait before somebody can see you in the emergency room. So, yes.
At this moment, can I take a consensus, Ben, Tina, if we could direct Chief Cassidy to come about with a quote next week to rent additional signage boards for deployment across the town to amplify the message. To the point of fatigue, I guess that's what we're getting to, but in the absence of anything else, we have revenue or resources to pay for it. Thoughts on that, Mr. Sparrow?
I'm in favor of it, but I think we need to think outside the box and let's start putting it in some different places.
Yeah.
I think people are kind of missing it in front of town hall, so let's think about maybe who put it in front of the high school, who put it at Blair Square, I don't know.
I'm thinking several of them.
But thinking outside the box, just to let's get them in some different locations, because I think people are kind of missing it in these other places, and so, yeah.
You're in, what do you think?
I'm in, and I think it also mirrors the tone of the emails that I've received as a parent of a HPS student, mirrors the concern that is being voiced through Holliston Public Schools as well. I think we would probably find significant support for these efforts there. I don't want to speak for them, but it certainly mirrors the tone that I'm picking up in those emails, so I'm fully on board with that.
I'll throw out a number. If you can get a quote for 6 boards, rent them for 3 months, 4 months, whatever you think is appropriate. Come back with a number. If you said, John, 6 is too many, I've strategically thought where we can go, it's this or whatever, come back with quotes and a plan next week, and I think maybe we can get on it.
I would much rather be accused of having told them too much than not.
Frankly, if you don't want to wait a week, we can give you some kind of not-to-exceed number right now, and you can just execute the plan, because time is of the essence here.
We want to be accused of doing too much and that it wasn't a big deal because we did too much, and we're able to
do you have a cost on what a rental is looking at? I you looked at that a couple months ago.
I could look through my notes while you're doing other board business tonight, and before you close, I can come back to you based on
Can we do that, Travis?
under other business.
Sure. Fair enough.
Great. And, okay, any other questions on just our regular?
Let's see if anybody, Chris, anybody on our Zoom that might have any questions on the coronavirus community update? Negative. Thanks, Mike. Keep going.
Okay, great, and just one, update, in terms of our CARES Act, next slide, Chris, and one after that. We are 2 reporting periods down, and, our next reporting period is, the end of January, and so we are still waiting to hear back, on the reauthorization that was signed by the President on the, 27th, I believe it was, and how much of that funding will be directed to education to, assist them in the second half of the school year, but, our need to report out on our expenses on the municipal side through December 31st, that report is due at the end of this month. So we're gearing up for that, and that's it. I don't have any requests right now. I do have some boards and committees who I have urged staff to go back and get a vote to bring any requests to you, because all of the previous requests, as we discussed last week, had ended as of December 30th, so, with the exception of the ones that you reauthorized through the end of March.
Any questions on that, Beth? Okay. Dina?
So those 4 additional dates there, 3 through 6?
Yes.
That's new?
No, those have been in place, so that's what
Oh, you did mention that.
I did say that they had the precedence to have reporting,
Almost like they knew they were gonna extend it.
yes,
And waited till the last second.
because they enjoy causing angina, yes.
So all that was formalized last week, but you had this already, you had, yes, okay.
That chart, was distributed by AF back in either May or June.
Is that right?
Yes.
The other thing I'll point out is, if you could go back, this is the old CARES Act infrastructure you're talking
Yes.
about. Are you prepared to bring us any information on what I call CARES 2?
When ANF releases, information to us and we know, how it's being targeted, I will absolutely bring that to you, and I anticipate, that in the coming weeks, as more clarity comes out of Washington, and that then makes its way to Beacon Hill, and that then gets filtered down at both the local level, I expect that we'll probably need to have another, working group, with representatives of, your board, folks from the school committee, as well as staff, to talk about how we're gonna, get through the end of the school year and, ride these funds through the end of, calendar 2021.
Before I let you go, Travis, kind of a question for both you and Mike. With the spike in our positivity rate, I think we broached on this last week that you all took some steps with public buildings to restrict the numbers of employees in certain spaces. Any other reports you want to make with regard to the safety of town buildings, and our employees at this point, or is it status quo to that point?
So in terms of, employees on an individual and corporate basis, continue to field a lot of questions from department heads and individual employees, whether they traveled, whether they had a family member who came back positive, whether they think they may have had an exposure. So a lot of the work in the trenches is still helping them to understand the matrix that we have posted on the website.
Yep.
And how that applies to them. I will defer to Travis with regards to the guidance that he has issued to department heads.
Everything's still by appointment only.
Yes.
So town halls by appointment only, we found that to be effective. I think foot traffic is down, and we would encourage any resident who needs to do business in town to make sure that, they've exhausted either trying to call or do it online. But if we need people to come in, we are available by appointment. And then we've just looked at the departments that have, the larger staffings and asked them to stagger, to limit the people in the building. And we'll do that as long as necessary.
Any, questions from our Zoom call for the programmatic update on the CARES Act from Chief Cassidy? Chris is shaking his head no.
I will,
Catch you in a few minutes.
I'll go double check my, laptop and come back to you before the end of the meeting.
Thanks so much, Chief.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Sparrow, move on to warrants this evening.
Alrighty. So we have one warrant this evening, so I will make a motion to approve the warrant in the amount of $1,385,648.91. Of that, $1,228,445.12 is town payroll.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that carries. Thank you, Ben. That's it, right?
That is it.
Public comment, Mr. Sparrow.
First, Happy New Year to everybody. And then I think my only other comment, my only public comment is just to remind people that about the 25 miles per hour speed limit in non-posted locations. If it is posted, it is not changing. We are not putting up new signs. We are we put in this in effect for places that there is a non-posted, there is no posted speed limit. So that's my only public comment.
Thank you, Ben. I have a funny feeling Ms. Lang is going to tell us something about that.
I sure do. I was just going to jump on Ben's comment there. The chief of police had said that the first month or two would be about education, so I think it's really important to share with the community just a 10-second history and streets that are not impacted and why this decision was made. Again, that falls under education. So town meeting approved the adoption of the state law that allowed us to make this change on January 1st. Town meeting approved that in May 2019. The Traffic Advisory Committee met on this and voted and recommended to the Select Board in November of 2020, to implement 25 town-wide. Following discussion, but also following Mass DOT's recommendation that towns that adopt this new state law implement it town-wide, and then the Select Board took the recommendation from the Traffic Advisory Committee and made the vote to approve town-wide implementation in November of 2020. Residents who are not happy with that decision can submit a petition to the Traffic Advisory Committee. So if you feel like your road should be faster than 25 miles an hour and your road is one of the 250 or so that are impacted, you and your neighbors can submit a petition and the Traffic Advisory Committee can look to see increased speeds. I don't think that's going to be what people choose to do, but that option does exist. There are 16 streets that are in town that are not impacted by this change to 25, and to Ben's point, they are currently posted and therefore not impacted. They're the major roads, the ones that bisect the town, Washington, Concord, Highland, Central Fifth, the larger roads in town. Residents who live on those roads and will not see a speed reduction can also submit a petition to the Traffic Advisory Committee. I will point out that the process to lower speeds on roads that are posted is more complex, and it involves a speed study and a different Mass DOT process, which is why they were not impacted by this decision. I think that for me, the reason why I supported this both as a member of the Traffic Advisory Committee and also as a member of the Select Board, and as somebody who spoke at town meeting in 2019, I see this as a major step towards improving walkability in our town. I see this as a major step to improving the safety of all road users, including people who drive, people who bike, people who walk, and yes, people who ride horses as well. So for me, this is about safety. This is not at all about an attempt to generate revenue, say, from additional motor vehicle moving violation tickets. That's not the motivation here. So I wanted to put that out there for education, and I'm very proud of our town for making this change, and I think that we will see an impact. I think it will take some time, but I think it will be a positive impact. That's all I had.
Thank you, Tina. Just have a few items just to hit at a high level. The month of January is shaping up to be quite a busy month for our board. It sets in motion this evening the FY22 budget process when we will be opening up the warrant. We have major issues coming up over the next several weeks, that will address things like a solar project on Marshall Street, which we hope the community will hear a lot of details about soon. The results of the evaluation of our town administrator later in the month. We plan to do a mid-year review, public review of where our board is progressing on our goals and what we're trending towards looking at towards the end of the year. We're going to feature some updates from Travis on that. We had some good exchanges of information today with that. We're going to hear from a group called Diverse Holliston sometime in January. Are they booked yet?
They requested the 25th.
25th, later in the month, to discuss some areas of improvement that they're going to recommend to us. We continue to see some lingering improvements from the town administrator on improving snow removal protocols from our town administrator, following up on some past discussions. We'll have a water rate hearing as well. So January is shaping up to be quite busy. From my space, it really starts tonight with the budget process. FY '22 will be an exciting budget year. We have challenges, as we always do, but we also have some opportunities, and I look forward to working with town officials to see those through. So with that said, I will ask if anyone else on our Zoom has any public comments to share with us this evening before we move on our agenda.
I just want to mention they could raise, if you're online, you could raise hand and the IT director could recognize.
I believe we've...
Okay.
Yeah, I think we've covered that. We are going to move on to comments from the town administrator. Hi, Travis.
Hello. All right, we have a few items to go through here. One thing I just want to make sure I mention, which I've done online as well, try to get some interest here. We have quite a few postings, actually more than usual, and a couple of them are pretty exciting. I'd like to just draw some attention to here. We'll obviously go through our normal steps, which is the MMA, Mass Municipal Association, and any other sources, but we've posted now the Senior Center Director position. As the director there will be retiring, she'll actually be helping us out in having the steering committee review applicants, but that has now been posted. This is all available on our website and also, as I mentioned, other MMA websites and others. The Assistant Rec Director position is also...
Can pause on that real quick. Senior Center Director, that's your hire, correct?
Yes.
And you will receive feedback and resumes from the COA?
Yeah, so the steering committee's been set up. It'll be the steering committee will be headed by Linda, and then they will make recommendations to myself, and we're setting up some people to come in and sit with me and the finalists as well.
Would you be so kind as to oblige this board by bringing in the selected candidate again, like you did with Mark, just as sort of a meet and greet?
Yes, we discussed that as the final step in the process.
If you wouldn't mind, thank you.
To introduce to the community, absolutely. The Assistant Rec Director as well moved within the organization, so that position has been posted. We have an open police officer position. The position that was created through special town meeting, the HR benefits specialist position, that was not a new position, it was a reconfiguration of an existing one, is still posted and until filled. And finally, as we discussed previously with DPW Highway, we still have a heavy equipment operator posting available as well as we continue to hire, and I believe one individual started today, but we do have one out there as well. So that's just 5, and then there's a number of part-time positions that we're looking for as well. So I would encourage anybody to spread the word on that. A couple very exciting positions.
Just before you move on to the next thing, could you point me in the right direction? I'm on the website right now. Where could we find those job postings if we wanted to see?
Yeah, so if you go in under Departments, Employment, and Personnel, and on the bottom of that page to the left is Job Opportunities.
Okay.
You will see them all posted. There is a posted position, and then where applicable, we also post the job description, which is sometimes a little wordier. And it's getting a little busy on that page, as I mentioned.
Sorry, what's it called again? Under departments where?
So you go to Town of Holliston, Departments, you get the drop-down, Employment and Personnel, and then on the bottom of that on the left is Job Opportunities.
If you get that many vacancies, I wonder if you know somebody in the technology department can move that button a little further to the front of the page for you.
We can do that.
I don't know if you know anybody.
We can do that. So when we post on other websites like MMA and their job opportunities, really is the best site that we have available to us as small towns. We'll be linking to that information from those postings. So one thing that was just mentioned by the chair is the solar project. And I hate to drop this at the last second here, but I just got off the phone with them previously that they'd like to move the public hearing from January 11th. We did a walkthrough, myself, the town planner, the DPW director, the highway superintendent, the health director, I'm trying to think, I don't want to leave anybody out, the sustainability coordinator, the facilities manager. We did a walkthrough of the site with the third party who's designing this for Soul Systems, and we just really explained, this project is very important to us, but our recycling center is very important to us as well. We'd like the operations to be the best they can be and leave us some room to potentially grow operations on that site. It was a good conversation, a lot of back and forth, and I got a call today saying that, they have a couple things that they still want to run by us, with a redesign of a couple options, and they don't want to come to you on the 11th with anything that is not final or something that, they feel comfortable with. So they asked if they could move. They were supposed to be in front of the Board of Health tomorrow night, and then you in front on the 11th. They'd like to extend that timeline. I let them know that I would talk to you and get back to them. We don't have to set a time right now, but if we wanted to, as you mentioned, the 25th is a very busy time at the moment, so we could certainly look beyond that. This is not delaying the project. I wanted to make that clear as well. This is the public hearing process is really to make sure that this board and the public is comfortable with where it is, but this is not slowing us down, as I mentioned previously, where we are with Eversource. So this won't delay the project overall. It's just they don't want to come to us on the 11th without a final view that you can consider. So my thought would be, right now we have we're set to kick off budget discussions on January 19th. We also have the Front Street Forum that night. January 25th, we're set to continue budget discussions and have the water rate hearing and now diverse Holliston as well. If it were possible or was the interest of the board, we could add potentially a Thursday night the week of the 19th to have to give Soul Systems their own sort of public hearing night would be one thought, or we could try to couple it with a future agenda.
Thoughts, Mr. Sparrow?
I think the 28th was a problem for you, the Thursday after.
Yeah, the 28th is an issue for me. I think otherwise I should be pretty good. I prefer to do it, in the Monday meeting, but I totally understand if you're going to move it.
Tina?
I'm hearing Travis is concerned about the schedule and what's on it, and I'm wide open to the idea of an additional night. It's doable on a Monday night, obviously no issue with that either, but if we need to get this onto a different night or move something to another night, I think we ought to.
How much time did they say they might need to develop new modeling?
They were comfortable with just moving it back 2 weeks.
I'm not. I don't want to wait 2 weeks.
Okay. So I could tell them the 19th. I think
we had them the 11th, right?
We had them for the 11th. I think the 19th is when they plan on now going in front of the Board of Health. Plus, we have a relatively full agenda.
The week of the 19th is pick another day that weekend.
So the 21st, Thursday.
Fine by me.
Board of Health meets on a Wednesday, though, don't they? Tuesdays?
Right, but that's MLK Day, so we were going to be meeting on the Tuesday anyway.
MLK is the 18th.
Right, so we were going to meet on the 19th. We are going to meet on the 19th. This would be adding a Thursday, and I know the Thursday the next week did not work.
That's correct.
Would this work for you? The
21st should be fine.
That gives them a little bit of maneuvering, but I do not want to be on the back end of any excuse during this project to say we held anything up.
I will let
I'm already
them know
growing
that that's the date.
impatient on this timeline, and we've talked about that.
Okay. I will throw out the 21st to them, and I will confirm.
And if you could pass along to them the need, the board's anxious to keep on schedule. You and I had a offline conversation like a month ago, I think, and I was trending against some early timeline models. At that time, they were a month behind what they projected back in April. And I understand COVID's an issue, but I'm impatient, and I want some results on this project. It's big, and I really don't want to see it drag on for many months because there's a significant amount of revenue at stake here, and I don't want to miss out on the opportunity to get this thing off the ground.
Okay. So with it being its own meeting, do we want to do 6:30, 7? What is the easiest? I think Ben had the schedule issue. More convenient.
Honestly, it's fine. Although any of those times are really fine. 6:30 or 7.
What type of timeline are they looking at? Is it a presentation, a couple hours? What do you...
So we have it scheduled as a public hearing, which again, I look at this. So this was part of the process. I don't think it's statutorily. I think it's a process that was laid out by the town that they wanted at some point to make sure that there was a public hearing for public input. So it can really be as long as the questions that come from us. I think the presentation from them, I would say, is probably about a half hour. There is some images to look at to scope out the plan of it, and
Let's stick to 6:30.
6:30. Okay. All right.
I've got a couple questions for you. This public hearing, tied to the Eversource interconnection piece, which is the big driver right now in terms of the schedule. This is a separate process that we're following.
Correct.
Okay.
They did have a dynamic analysis from Eversource today, which says that everything is online, but Eversource hasn't given them the sort of final result stamp that says that we're definitely going to stay on the right timeline. So that's what we want as well.
Okay. We have a video that we made.
Mm-hmm.
We have a fact sheet, the benefits of, that was prepared by Soul Systems. That hopefully can all be prepared and presented at that public meeting. And then will DPW and Highway be at the public hearing as well? Will they be present?
We can certainly have, I can certainly talk to them about being available. I think, you know, the point of the walkthrough, which I thought was very effective, was to sort of make sure that the operational concerns of the recycling center were reflected.
Right.
And I think if Soul Systems is able to accommodate what came from that discussion, I would leave it up to you if you feel the need for them to be there. I can certainly try to arrange that.
Well, I was just thinking about it broadly, that they're abutters as well. They run the recycling center and they abut the property. And so the impact of the project and the access to the project, to the site itself, are going to affect DPW and how they operate the recycling center. And so in the sense that in that way they're an abutter, they would be a valuable voice to have at the meeting if they have concerns that they want to share. The board can hear. We don't go on the walkthrough, so if there are concerns that they would like to share, that might be a good time for them to do that. Because I imagine at this 19th, or the 21st meeting, they'll have ironed out some of the things that were identified during that walkthrough. That's one of the reasons why we're having this delay in the public hearing. And so I think it would be valuable for the full board to have an opportunity to, you know, see it presented, and then the Highway and DPW can be there to, or DPW, rather, can be there to take a look at it and share their comments at that time, and we have the benefit of hearing what you know, they have to say. Okay. That's my thinking, at least, to present it.
Okay, and then I would just point out, so that was obviously one of the reasons we had the discussion today about, you know, the need to sort of change some of the schematics, was the feedback from DPW on the operations of what two people who were not at the walkthrough and will get their own separate walkthrough for a number of reasons would be the fire chief and the building inspector. So that walkthrough will still happen, and there will be feedback from that as well. This was more operational of the recycling center and things of that nature. So I can definitely see if it makes sense to have them speak directly. Anything else on solar? I will book that night. All right. One other meeting coming up, the Stantec meeting, the DPW director, the liaison to the DPW, Ben Sparrow, myself will be doing a kickoff meeting with Stantec on the two projects that were approved at special town meeting, which is the sidewalk prioritization plan and the water modernization plans. That has been booked, and I will follow up after that for any, you know, dates, progress updates, and sort of set the expectations on where those are going. So excited to get going on that. One other thing I wanted to follow up on from last week was an issue in the Lowland Industrial Park area with a truck hitting wires. I have spoken directly to the company that the truck was going to, and I am waiting for responses from Mass DOT and Verizon for some potential solutions there. So I should be bringing that back to you, hopefully as early as next week with some things that we can do. Lastly, just to follow up on last week's discussion on the heavy commercial vehicle exclusion request for quotes, that went out today to 9 firms that would do this work, 3 of which I believe we've worked with in the past couple of years, 6 of which just came recommended. And that is also posted on our website. And since we're talking about where things go on our website, let's do that. Town links, procurement, and legal notices. It is the request for quote on there. We have 2 public hearings also that were added there. One will now be changed. One was the public hearing for Soul Systems. We'll get that date changed, and then the other one is the public hearing for the water rate. And that is if you go to the town's website under town links, procurement, and legal notices. Other than that, I'm all set at the moment.
Any questions of the town administrator from anyone on the Zoom? Tina?
I have one for you, Travis. With the water rate hearing scheduled for the 25th, a while back had asked for the water rate study of 2020.
Hmm?
Haven't seen that yet. If it's possible to get that before the 25th, that would be great.
Yes.
Thank you.
So you've seen the draft, you're looking for the final, or you
Haven't
haven't
seen
seen?
either.
Okay.
Well, obviously, I'd like the final. You don't need to see the draft if the final is out there, so, but I have not seen the draft.
Okay.
I've seen the summary of,
Absolutely.
thank you.
And so the only tricky thing, so on the 25th, obviously, with the water rate hearing, I've also scheduled the water department budget conversation to be happening simultaneously. They go hand in hand to a certain extent. One thing we'll discuss at that point is going to be projecting debt service for the water treatment plant, which falls under the Water Enterprise Fund. Other than that, there's just a couple things that the DPW director needs from the Treasury Collector's Office in terms of some of the indirect costs that go with the Water Enterprise Fund as its own entity paying into insurances and those types of things. So should have that to you, and I can get the water rate study for you at the same time. Anything else?
We're all clear. Travis, at this point, I think we have to turn to you, Ben, to open the annual town meeting warrant and close it on March 29th, 2021. Does the clerk need to read something for this?
I don't have anything for him to read.
Sorry, Ben.
That's okay. So what I did put in your packet is just what I had provided to you last week, or actually in December, which is what's been posted out on the board. What we do prior to the end of the calendar year is post the following year's annual town meeting, special town meeting, and election. So that has been posted.
Mm-hmm.
May 10th, 2021, 7:30 at the high school auditorium. The fall town meeting set for Monday, October 25th, 2021. Election set for Tuesday, May 25th, 2021, high school gym. And so what I also referenced was that the select board would be looking to open the warrant on January 4th, 2021, through March 29th, 2021. And what is included in that packet, which has also been posted and we'll be putting online, should the board choose to open the warrant this evening, is the forms necessary for any board, committee, or resident to request an article to be put on the warrant for the May town meeting. So the motion, and the reason I didn't write anything, would be simply to open the warrant for the annual town meeting, and we will then vote in March to close it. I just want people to have the timeline in mind so that they have sort of a frame of reference.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Should we take a vote?
That'd be great.
This evening, I'd like to entertain a motion to open the annual town meeting warrant for the upcoming town meeting scheduled for May 10th. Thank you, 2021.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The warrant is now open. We expect, as Mr. Ahern indicated, for that to remain open until March 29th.
Yes, and I will send out a press release tomorrow.
Thank you. Bobby here?
I think I saw him in the hallway.
Next item on our agenda is the Bobby Blair Farmers Market discussion at Blair Square. I believe he's great. He's in the house. Great. Could we secure him a suitable socially distanced chair? That looks like a good one right there. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Steve.
Howdy.
Good evening.
How's every little thing?
Well, not too bad.
Good to see you. You have some, something you want to talk to us about tonight?
Yeah, I came to see if you would like a farmer's market in town. I started out by checking with some of the stakeholders, and I called Mr. Conley, who's in charge of, I didn't want to see a total restoration if we decided to have a farmer's market and all torn up, you know. And he said, well, due to the lack of funding, nothing would be happening right away, and if they did anything, it might be piecemeal. And I says, okay, I could work around that.
Mhm.
I checked with Mr. Weidnick for the rail trail. He was okay with it. I checked with the Friends of the Rail Trail. I checked with the AgCom, the Community Farm Advisory, the Economic Development, and I think, John, you and Travis must have got an email this morning.
We did,
I'll
Peter.
come back to a few issues there.
Yep.
And I checked with Karen Sherman as far as the ZBA and Planning Board goes. No problems there. I went a little further and I went on Facebook and I asked what people thought, and I got inundated with 549 likes and 384 comments.
All positive, right?
Pardon?
All positive, right?
There was a few in there, they weren't exactly negative,
Neutral.
but they were kind of
Reflective.
asking questions.
What time period was that?
Here's what the people want. They want face painting, French bread, yarn, candles, cheese, dog treats, food trucks, knife sharpeners, fish, jewelry, candy, eggs, organic veggies, art, music, pottery, baked goods, alpaca products, and soap.
That sounds like King Richard's Fair, Bob.
Huh?
That sounds like King Richard's Fair.
Yeah, well, so, the couple of comments that, as I said, weren't negative, they were questioning, it was due to the local farmers, the larger farmers. I reached out to them. If I can just read, and I don't think Kevin would mind. This is from Outpost. Hi, Mayor. Thanks for reaching out to Outpost regarding a farmer's market. Adrian and I both think it is a great idea. We both believe this will become an overnight success and will be a boom to the town's local economy. The timing could not be more perfect considering how many small businesses are hurting. As someone who lives on the trail, I believe Blair Square to be the perfect spot. Outpost would love to be part of the market and help in any aspect we can. And that was Kevin. Great. I also reached out to Peter and Helen MacArthur. Spoke to Peter 2 days ago. He's all for it. And this is the neutral comment. A couple people were saying, well, I don't think the local farms will want to have to hire an extra person. And Peter more or less kind of said, hey, he says, I have a market on Sunday in Needham. He says, but I'm going to do my best to try to make it. You know, as a farmer, I know where he's coming from. So I had chosen a Sunday only because we have other farmers markets around. We're one of the few that don't. Ashland has one. Hopkinton sometimes has two, one in the town common and one at Western Nurseries. Framingham has one. Milford has one. Hopedale has one. Medway sometimes has two, and Natick has one. I think the only ones around that don't are Millis and Sherburne. And I have picked out a Sunday morning. There is a farmer's market in Hopkinton. It's in the afternoon. I was thinking of a date, June 20th, the start, which is first day of summer and also Father's Day. And the market would probably go to the first or second week in October. Instead of reinventing the wheel, and all of these are, sorry, Travis, the printer ran out.
That's fine.
They're all pretty standard. We probably follow that and tweak them some.
Are there any fees that are, in play for the participants, or is it all free?
Pardon?
Do the participants, do the farmers that come pay a fee?
Usually it's $25.
That's halfway down the second page, right? Who collects the money?
The manager at the market would collect it. I have spoken to the Friends of the Rail Trail, and they would be the sponsor. They would handle the money. And they would keep most of the money. You know, if there was expenses, we would have them pay it, and it goes into the Friends of the Rail Trail.
That doesn't sit well with me. I'd rather the money go to the town coffers so that the town could use its resources to maintain the space. Cut the grass, empty trash. What do you think, Travis?
I have to review the operations and how it's gonna look.
I was only thinking, because I believe Ashland, is a 501c3. They set it up. I'm terrible at bookkeeping. I won't lie.
This is Hopkinton, right, that you just gave us, or is this everybody?
That's Hopkinton. I think they stole it from Ashland, because I looked at both of them. So they're more or less, alike.
I think there's a lot of logistics we have to go through. I think you mentioned trash collection, that would be my biggest concern, so, I mean, we're gonna have to come up with a plan for that regardless. Certainly happy to work with the Friends group on that, or work it ourselves. Obviously, we're looking to, put something in there to begin with. This would be much larger than what we were talking about with adding a barrel next to the, dog waste containers, right? This is gonna be a large, amount of trash to get rid of. So we're gonna have to talk logistics in general.
Bobby, as you, you know what, I should defer. Are you done? Can we ask questions now?
Sure.
All right, why don't we start with Ben? I'd like to.
So, a couple of questions. So you mentioned starting on June 20th. Have you reached out to the Historical Society?
I have.
They have,
Paul Sonia, that's his day, his, car truck day.
that's what I thought. I thought they did something.
And he said there's no problem. They go from 8 to 10.
Okay.
And he even invited me. He says, bring a sign down and advertise for the farmer's market.
Okay, great. And then the other, my only, concern is, so, I'm on the Blair Square Committee, so I've certainly talked a little bit about some of the stuff that's gone on there. I've had to miss a few of the meetings because they put it right in the middle of bedtime for my son. So one of the things that has come up in some of the conversations is concerns about developing the space in general. Before we even got to this, was parking in that area. Now, I realize we just put some parking in behind Casey's, it looks great and things like that. I think my only concern is almost that we might be victimized by our own success, in a way, that there's lots of things going on, CVS gets a little clogged up, and I just have a little bit of concern about making sure logistically that, do we need, are we thinking about things like, do we need a police officer to handle traffic?
That was down on my list too.
Yeah, I think there's some logistics there to make sure that, as this goes on, I have a feeling that we'll see quite a bit of success. I'm not as lucky as I know Tina is, and she can walk there. I wish I could, but so I'd have to drive, which means that what does that impact? So my concern is just making sure that we're thinking about some of those logistics beyond trash and things like that, particularly driving people, kids, dogs, things like that, and just what can we do? What should we do? Does it mean closing down roads or anything like that? I mean, I'm not.
I was down there last Wednesday trying to measure off, and Mr. Wideneck came along, and I pointed out that here it was 3:15 in the afternoon,
Right.
and every single space right down Winthrop Street, right down Front Street was taken, and that's on it. And I hate the cold. I'm going, where the heck everybody? They're all on the rail trail. All you have to do is look up, and you could see them walking. as one of the stipulations, when we come out with the rules and regs, I would require that the vendors park at the municipal parking lot.
Okay.
Or the school, they could park at the middle school.
Pardon?
They could park at the middle school too, block away,
Yeah. Oh,
overflow.
well, it's, hopefully, I mean, for this kind of thing, and I do Natick, at a farmer's market, we're able to pull right up and take the stuff out easily. Hopefully, when we have setup time, you'd have an allotted time to pull into the trail, unload your stuff, go park your car, and then later, when they break down, come back at a certain time, pull in there. There's that little cutoff there that I use when I go to water down there. When Bob was down there the other day, they have cut back some of the trees, the brush, which gives enough room right down the trail to set up tents, but they had a larger space that they had cut out so that if I had vehicles in there past that pathway, they could go right out. There'd be no need for backing up, which is great. But from what I understand, and I don't know when you've had a meeting as of late, but I think the veterans are planning on going down there somewhere. How soon that will happen, I don't know.
So, I mean, I think, you know, these are more comments, I guess, more for the folks next to me almost than you about the parking and things like that. I just, you know, I think we have to really be cognizant of that as we make the decisions, you know, especially if people are parking and staying for, you know, an hour or two, you know, does that keep people who may be interested in going to the farmer's market because someone else is walking the trail? It's not to say that you want to exclude one from another, but are there ways that we could manage logistically to make sure that people can engage the both the trail and the farmers market? So it's a question. There's probably not going to be a good answer until we start getting involved in doing something to really see what the impacts would be. So that's all I have. Thank you.
I feel like this board's job is probably to suck the fun out of everything, so, here goes, right? I'm 110% behind this idea. I think that this is absolutely the realization of the vision for Blair Square as our town common. I think it's a wonderful idea, and I fully support it. Now let me come through with all of the, mom of the group here kind of thoughts here. One would be, I think we have to have a parking plan. We already anticipate that with the Front Street discussion that's coming up in a week or two, that we will most likely have comments related to parking in that area. It's a heavily used space for all that's good. It does present concerns to the neighbors, and I think in order for this to be successful, I think we really have to have on the front end, no pun intended, what that parking plan for Front Street is going to look like and that area. So I think that's going to be a really important thing, and I think that involves some work on our end to identify what parking is going to look like with any permanent changes that are proposed for Front Street. And we don't know that yet because we haven't had the Front Street Forum that we're about to have in a week or two. So I think parking hangs out there as a need a plan. I think we need a site plan for where the vendors set up. To Ben's point, we've been collecting the data. Robert can speak to it. We have a counter down there in Blair Square. We know how many people go in and out of Blair Square every Sunday. And we can go back to January, 12 months now worth of data. And I'm going to tell you that the time period that you're talking about, you're between 800 and 1,200 people a day passing through Blair Square just for the use of the trail. So that right out of the gate tells you how successful you're going to be, but it also points to the challenge of moving those people through the square, giving them parking and so on, and then bringing in the additional people. There's no doubt about it, this is going to be a huge success, but I think we have to have a plan to allow for flow through the square of people who are using the trail and parking for people who are coming to the trail for that and the farmers market. I would like to know more about who is receiving the revenue from the vendors. I look at Natick and their farmers market, it looks like they have a cultural district set up. I'm glad Matt Coletti's on the call. I don't know if he would have comments to share about how that might look, some ideas of how the town would collect that revenue, if at all, if it comes to the town, if it goes to the Friends of, if it's used in some way to enhance Blair Square, the downtown area. I'm not really sure how that plays out, but I think there's a lot to unpack with that, especially if this is successful. I think that's another issue. Trash, I absolutely agree, is already something that the town is having to address, and we would only need to do so more with the farmers market. The police detail piece, I think is significant. That's obviously a really heavy intersection there. And then I had a question for you. Two questions. Would you envision food trucks?
I hadn't,
Okay.
only because of space,
Yeah.
although, Mr. Wyjack the other day goes, we could have a food truck there, a food truck there, and I went,
Okay. Would it be cash-free? So it's all done, but would you set it up? I imagine we'll still be dealing with, hopefully at this point, the remnants of the pandemic, but I would think that cash-free transactions may be something the Board of Health might want to see for, for the handling of that. And then how many, you named a bunch of area farmers markets. How many are actually on a rail trail? Are we unique in that regard?
not.
Wow, okay. Which I think, again, speaks to how...
I knew that, like you say, it could be too much of a good thing, too much of a success, because you've got people coming through there anyway. I had gone virtually to the Community Farm Advisory, let them know, asking them their thoughts. I think they would have liked to have seen it down at the community farm. The only thing is, it's obscure down there. There's not parking set up. I tried this once before, 15 years ago.
I remember, I know.
At John Gagnon's. And it was small then. Farmers markets weren't big then.
Bobby, when you sell a permit, when you sell a plot to a vendor,
Right.
that plot is a specific size. Is that what you're selling to
It's
them?
usually 10 by 10.
And so has anyone mapped out the Blair Square footage to see how...
Well, I did go down and I tried to get an idea of how many people could be fit in there. And they cleaned that brush off, and, you can almost 40 or so. But with that little incline on the hill, coming over from, it's difficult to set up a tent, although most of these tents come so that you can have the back legs a little shorter.
You named about 15 different types of stalls. When you first presented to us tonight, you named about 15 different types of vendors. You went all the way through honey and
Right.
candles and so
Right.
on. Okay.
The idea here is, you'd want a little competition from produce, farmers that have produce. You don't want to have 20 of the same type thing. It's up to the market manager. If everybody's selling tomatoes, pretty soon the guy that's not selling the tomatoes is going to drop out, and next thing you know, you don't get the customers coming. So most of these markets have a variety of people, including artists. Someone sent in, and she does massages in a chair, and I thought to myself, and they have her at Natick. There's another woman that reached out, and she's a seamstress, and she says, "Do you have electricity there?" And I says, "Yeah." She says, "I could bring my sewing machine. I could just sit there." Back, it's unique. There's a guy that sharpens knives,
I do think that there's work to be done to set it up as a successful event before it becomes a successful event. I think, again, a wonderful idea. and it would be great to see it be successful.
All of these people, I mean, everybody gets online and they're all enthusiastic. I know that afterwards you have to go to the Board of Health and say, okay, what do we got for guidelines here on what's permitted as far as food goes? I'm not so much concerned about the farmers themselves, when they bring their squash and their corn, fine, they're free to sell it as long as it's not processed. As soon as food starts being processed, we have a problem there because they have to have a certified kitchen. And I'm sorry, but most people don't. I think when we had that one 15 years ago, the Board of Health kind of said, okay, if it's a stealth group and they're coming down and selling cupcakes or whatever, no problem. Once you start adding, I like to think of it as the gooey stuff that could turn, then you can't have that kind of thing. So.
Anything else? A couple things, Bob. I share Tina's enthusiasm for the idea as a home run, but I think you have some challenges. What I'd strongly recommend is you work with the town administrator's office to set up your own 501c3. Personally, I'd like to see any funds generated from this go directly back to the ARP program. A farm manager is responsible not just for running it, but also handling the money associated with it. We then have a single point of contact to go to if we have traffic control issues, trash issues, or any other impacts. And with regard to sort of the expansion, I agree with Tina. It might be helpful when you come back with that concept, bring us a layout of how, what's the scope look like? I've been to all of those farmers markets you talked to. They're all pretty well spaced out. Hopkinton's got probably 20, 25 stations. You wouldn't know it, though. It's well distributed and easy to get to. If I heard you correctly, you said Sunday mornings, right? Did you give us the time?
9 to 1.
Is Casey's open on Sundays from 9 to 1?
No, I don't think so.
You might want to talk to Casey about seeing if parking is available in his lot to support that kind of adventure as well.
I had also thought of, I'm going to call Goodwill Shoot, Water Street Mill, because it is a Sunday.
The other side, yeah.
And using their space, parking space down there, I don't, maybe 25 to 30 cars, if that, I don't know.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on this?
I think the only other thought I had was Blair Square is a great spot, but are there any other places in town that might be better suited to handle some of the traffic flow, parking, things like that? Maybe one of the schools. I mean, I don't know. And I'm just curious if we explored any of those other options that might be a little easier to navigate and to work with than Blair Square might be.
Well, when this is advertised, you would put the parking plan up there. You would have directions for where people could park, and I think John raised it, the schools on Woodland Street all are within not even a quarter mile, so you, in theory, could direct visitors to the wayfinding signage, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, this is proof of concept, right?
Yeah,
I mean, he's putting together something that...
Absolutely. I think the concept is great. I'm just trying to think about,
Right. On June 20th, he may have 10 people, right, that are in, and they're paying, and it's great. And then by July 20th, it's 20 people. And he could outgrow the space. Personally, I'm enamored by the idea of promoting it up at the community farm, because there is parking up there. But it's remote, and you have to kind of train people to go there. But once you've developed a concept, I think they'll find you. I like the idea of putting it at Blair Square to begin with. It's a natural meeting place, as Tina said. You got a tremendous amount of foot traffic there, but you're going to have some challenges. That's why I think a plan, a 501c3 to take the money, and a point of contact for us to help manage it. I think then you're off to the races. I think you'll be in good shape.
I think it takes a while to get a 501c3, right?
I don't think it does.
We can look at it. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to take some filings with the IRS to be, it could take a little, if June is the goal, I think that's doable. I don't know how involved the town can get in setting it up, though.
Is the community farm a 501c3?
So the community farm, and the friends groups, right, generally speaking, the 501c3 allows them to take donations and then the donator can then write it off.
Right.
And then each, we also have revolving funds and those types of things where the town owns that money, and then the donation can't go that way. So we could look at sort of multiple scenarios. If the town were running it, I would look at it as a revolving fund. We could set that up in May, would be our timeline. If the 501c3, so that donations could be given or anything like that, that would have to be in somebody else's name. To your point, then we would have a single point of contact. That's certainly a route to go as well.
And you're also thinking of providing porta-johns and things like that, so that the businesses...
I hadn't thought of that. That was one of the issues that came up was the economic development.
Right, we wouldn't want to put an undue burden on the businesses.
Right.
So you need
my thought was, too, that if we needed a police officer for the crossing there, and now we need a porta-john, and we had the expenses on there, all of a sudden it's like, okay, do we get to a point of, we're not taking in enough from the vendors to take care of all these expenses? And I know that Hopkinton there, they ask the sponsors, so I don't know their finances, but I don't know why they ask for money if, it's not sustainable.
Right.
Well, so I don't know how it works in Holliston. I have not run any kind of an event here in Holliston. Can the police and others, they can donate time and services to a 501c3? No? Okay. I don't know what I'm talking about then. Yeah. All right. Never mind.
The firefighters do that. He's laughing at it.
Those that are part of the bargaining unit do not normally allow their members to volunteer their time.
So
Auxiliary police?
with the sponsor idea for other communities, right, that's where the 501c3 would come in as well, right? Then you're getting corporate sponsors is really a private donor, a corporate sponsor. They're also going to want to see the 501c3 so that they can write it off. And to the point, right, if it can't all sustain, then we also can't make it a revolving account necessarily, right? Because the revolving account needs to be self-sustaining. So all of this too, I think what we discussed, which is, sort of seeing the layout, I think we need to see the financials too, because if it's going to need to be supported by tax dollars or anything like that, we can certainly factor that into the FY22 budget discussion. But whether if it's on the town side as a revolving fund or through the budget, that's a conversation we need to have leading up to the May town meeting. And if it's going to be done as a separate entity, I think that's the other concern, is if it's not self-sustaining, that somebody's going to need to take that on. So a business plan, I think, would be the other part here that we're sort of, we're in need of.
Any questions from our friends on the Zoom call?
If we have anybody calling in, to unmute yourself would be *6.
He's not up there.
Any questions? Hey, Matt.
Matt
Good evening,
Coletti,
Matt.
Summit Point Drive. How are you all? Happy New Year. Just calling in with support for Bobby Blair and his great grassroots efforts so far to get, as Ben noted, this kind of proof of concept here. On behalf of the Economic Development Committee, speaking, for myself right now, I think that we could, partner with Bobby in his efforts as kind of an initial forum to vet his ideas, help establish a business plan, help him establish logistics, and kind of work through some of the ideas that were brought up tonight, and just provide a sounding board. I think the Economic Development Committee would be willing to do that and serve as a forum for that, and I'd be willing to help in any way possible. So.
Thanks, Matt.
Awesome.
Any other questions? Hearing none. Bob, thanks so much. I think there's a little bit of work to do. Happy to help along. Stay in touch with Travis, and we'll try to get you where you need to go. And as always, you're the best. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank
well,
you.
Happy New Year. All right, we're gonna move on to board business. Travis, natural gas contract, is that you?
Yes, we also should have James Keith with us. And there he is waving, and then I believe the IT director will have a slide to put up on his behalf.
James, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Am I talking, Travis, or are you?
I believe that you were, but I can certainly hop in here.
No, it's fine. Just don't to steal your thunder. But anyways, you recall a while back that we went through aggregation on the electric supply for the town of Holliston. At least these are the electric supplies for the municipal buildings, not the residents. I went through and did the same thing with the natural gas supply in town. In average, we use about 7,762 therms of natural gas a month, and that's excluding the schools. So that's the buildings like the DPW buildings, that's Pinecrest, that's the town hall, the library, the senior center. They all use natural gas for heating. And I went out to the market through a company called Patriot Energy, who actually did this for us for the electrical aggregation. And they came back with 4 providers for natural gas rates. One is UGI, the other one is NG Suisse, the other is SFE, and of course, Eversource. Currently, we are contracted, or not contracted, but we get our natural gas supply and distribution, but the supply from Eversource. Their current rate is 0.69, just under 70 cents a therm. If we want to, we have several options that can lower that rate. The best is with UGI Energy with an 18-month fixed price of 0.6182 cents per therm. And comparing that to the Eversource rate gives us a savings of $593 a month. And over the course of the contract, that translates to $10,674. Okay.
Okay. Questions on that, Ben?
A couple questions. So the first question I have is, are we going to be taking any action to try to reduce our usage on a monthly basis?
Yeah, so the usage reduction is primarily been happening through the Green Communities program. So a lot of the boilers or heating systems have been changed and replaced replaced with energy efficient units. So there are some reductions. This is strictly, the rate at this point, but there are other ongoing efforts, certainly through, Chris and his group with Green Communities, as well as Matt Zedek, to look for ways to conserve the natural gas.
Excellent. Okay. And my second question is related to the information that Travis provided in our packet. So we see, just want to make sure that you understand what it's the, what is this document called?
This, by the way, this file that's up on the screen is a little different than what's in your packet. I made some slight changes.
Okay.
Chris, could you just take this down so we can see James? And then, so what I provided to them includes the service addresses of all the accounts. Is that what you're looking at, Ben?
Yeah, actually, that was my question, actually, is the service addresses, because I noticed there were several addresses that had multiple accounts. And I was just curious why, like, for example, 100 Linden Street, why there are 2 accounts there, and 1750 has 2 accounts.
So 1750, before we bought that, would have 2 accounts because of the nature of the businesses that were in there.
Okay.
Right, so that each of those businesses probably could have gotten their own natural gas, and they kept those dedicated. I don't know, James, if you're aware of Linden.
Yeah, Linden is actually attached to the wastewater treatment plant is the maintenance building for the schools. And that is included in this. The schools have their own aggregation program. It's a contract, it's a multi-year contract, and that's still in force for the next couple of years. The Linden building is not actually part of that, but the school buildings are. So that's the reason for the 2 addresses at Linden Street.
And is there any opportunity, I mean, down the road to combining this with the schools to try to potentially get a better rate with them?
Absolutely. I'm sorry, Tina?
Oh, I'm sorry, I was gonna add, I thought that they used oil, but perhaps I'm wrong on that.
They do. Some of the buildings use oil. The schools, and just to answer your question, Ben, the contract that the schools has is enforced for another couple of years. You can't really break it.
Right.
Penalties, but the schools are paying about 74 cents a therm. And they use, so on average, we use about, 7,700 therms. They use on average about 4,200 therms. So it's a good amount. It's about 2/3 of the town's, current municipal building usage is also consumed at the schools. So they are a big consumer. So certainly when their contract expires, I'll work with Keith to include them in. And then once we have that larger consumption combined, then we can get even better rate.
So just to make sure that I heard you correctly, you said that 7,700 therms is the town usage, and then the 4,000-ish is school. They're separate. The 77 does not include the 4,000. So it's 11,000 we're looking at.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I think it would be a good idea if we could try to line things up as closely as possible to try to get everybody on the same page with respect to future contracts at some point, so we're not always like kind of missing each other. Because I think
to that point, then does the 12 months as opposed to the 18 months would that better align, James, to your knowledge?
Actually, the 18 months better aligns with the schools.
Okay.
In fact,
so you're recommending that that the one that was in italics in the.
That's correct. The 18 months term, that would then put us in line with the schools, plus or minus a few months, and then we can go bid again for the full.
And my last question is there any other difference other than rates from which supplier we choose?
No, the distribution still remains with Eversource. This is just simply the rate or the supply.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Tina.
James, you mentioned that we went through something similar with the electricity aggregation plan, and that was also Patriot Energy?
That's correct, yes.
So there was another process there that got the community aggregation plan as well for electricity. It was not Patriot Energy, but we offer both. We offer for the town side, we have for the town side, and then we have for residents as well. For electricity suppliers, a reduced rate or a locked-in rate. There does not appear to be that option with this. Is there an opportunity there to go back to Patriot Energy to see if there is a way they can offer this supplier charge to residents as well? Because I had a look at my Eversource bill, and it's significantly higher. Well, I say that. It's not 0.61820. In fact, I'm not even sure, which is what we're seeing here for the 18-month fixed price offered through Patriot Energy. I didn't see that, any option like that when I went to Eversource as a resident. So is there an opportunity here to talk to Patriot Energy about offering something to our Eversource customers who are residents in town?
Absolutely. I can talk to them. I'm not sure, but I can work with Matt Zedek as well, because he spearheaded the effort for the town resident aggregation on the electricity side, and we can look at it from the natural gas side as well.
Okay, thank you. And then that 7,762 therms, that's average per month over the 12 months of a calendar year?
Yep.
And we're tracking how our efforts at efficiency are going?
Yeah, through the Green Communities Act and the reports that we write, annually, that's how that's tracked, yes.
Yeah, okay, all right.
I was asked to clarify that schools use both gas and oil. Gas is used to turn on the rooftop units. Okay.
Thank you. You good?
Yes, thank you, James.
James, the only question I have, first of all, great work. Again, seeing you regularly deliver on improved pricing for the various utilities that the town consumes is tremendous value. Earlier tonight, I talked about this board having a mid-year review, and I think the citizens deserve the opportunity to see in the aggregate the work you and others have been doing to bring savings to the community through work like this. Let me just ask you quickly, doing a little bit of online research here, are you familiar with bandwidth management or swing tolerance of the type of supply that's given to communities like ours?
No, I'm not.
I'm under the impression that there's some benefits to communities that, especially during the summer, during high utility times, that you can gain thermal benefits or save money if you power down or go down and cool down to certain levels to avoid brownouts and things like that. Is that the kind of language that we might be able to get a better rate on or develop better leverage on this kind of a contract, James? That's something we can find out more about?
You know, we can certainly find out more. I can certainly see that on the electric side. On the natural gas side, you know, there's just from a residential standpoint, I know that, you know, the Google Nest has, you know, what's called a rush hour setting where they can, you know, they can take control of your thermostat and adjust the temperatures based on supply and, you know, based on demand. But I'll find out how that is controlled on the natural gas side. It's probably through thermostatic control. But again, I will research that for you.
I also think the bandwidth thing deals with the fact that some communities, the way they use the resource fluctuates month to month, but the bandwidth allows you to spread that out a little bit too. I'm not sure that matters to the town of Holliston. We have a budget we pay, you know, but it might be easier from an accounting perspective to pay a certain amount every month. Cash flow being what it is.
You're talking about level pay as approach?
Yes, that's another part of the bandwidth, yeah.
I misunderstood your question.
So just a couple follow-up nuances, if you don't mind. But other than that, was he looking for a vote tonight on this, Travis?
Yes, he was looking for, if we'd like to opt in and go this route to get that rate, we would need approval before we can initiate the paperwork.
Okay, I would like to entertain a motion to enable the town to pursue a 18-month fixed price natural gas supplier. The name of the firm again was which one?
Let me pull up the file again. UGI Energy.
UGI, I had it as supplier A. UGI Enterprise. The therm rate shown is $61,820 for projected savings of $10,674 a year. We have a motion.
But that's $10,674 for the length of the contract.
18 months.
Oh, I beg your pardon. 18 months. Thank you. Do I have a second?
I will make that motion, yeah.
Motion,
And
second.
I will second that, yeah.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
So James, you have our permission to proceed with the contract. If you could draw out any of the other nuances and things that Tina and I brought up, that would be great.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, James.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Next item on our agenda is the meeting minutes from December 14th, 2020. Ben, would you like to make a...
I will make a motion to, sorry, Tina.
Go ahead.
Okay, I will make a motion to approve the meeting minutes for December 14th, 2020.
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Before we move on, Travis, you sent us an email regarding executive session meeting minutes. How do we kind of collectively address the batch of, I think there were 7 or 8 different meetings? You put them all in one document. Do you want to bring them to us as a la carte, or how do you want us to deal with that?
I sent them out for your review.
Yep.
We take any feedback, and then we can vote them in the future.
All right. Did you get feedback?
No.
I have not yet.
Okay.
It was quite a few sets, so.
Yeah, I read them. I actually found one typo, so other than that, they look fine to me. But if you guys can have a chance to give him some feedback, we'll tackle that in the next several weeks. The next item, the Town Administrative Evaluation Process Review. This will be on me. Stand by, folks. So, the town administrator's contract requires an evaluation, to be done, in January, I think, right, Travis?
Yes.
Each year. After conversations with council, the town clerk, we are gonna proceed with a process that involves each individual, member of the board meeting with Travis to give him, his or her evaluation. The document will then be given to the town clerk, who will assemble a public document for discussion, hopefully later in January. That's our goal, so that the town can understand, this board's overall, opinion of your work. The product that is given to the town clerk was in your personnel file. We have following steps as outlined by town council. Specifically, it will involve, your job performance, as it relates to the job duties within Chapter 94, Act 94. And then there's some overall comments that can be given. You also have an opportunity to feed back information through that process as well. All right, so we're underway. I think, let's see, what did I give it to you guys? On December 30th, I gave Ben, Tina, Liz, and you the forms. So my hope is that, in the next, week or two, we can all schedule some time with Travis and then get our documents to Liz, within a week or so. Cool. Sound good? Any questions on that? Nope. All right, there's the town administrator evaluation process underway. And guess what, Ben Sparrow? Fire department, bring it up.
So the fire department has received a gift. $100 in unrestricted gifts from a Fieldstone Drive resident. So, I will make a motion to receive $100 to the fire department gift account for, from a Fieldstone Drive resident for unrestricted use.
I will second that motion.
A motion and a second. All those in favor of accepting the $100 gift, to the fire department, say aye.
Aye.
That carries. Another day in paradise, Mike. The next item, Ben, senior center donation.
Yeah. So, I will, make a motion to receive a $100 gift to the senior center. It is a donation from Diane Keeley, and it should be received to the gift revolving fund. Is that right?
Yeah, I will second that.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that carries. All right. As we proceed, now we are on to other business. Anything for you, Mr. Sparrow?
The only thing for other business, I'd like to mention, I am working on compiling Q2's, events for the select board, and I hope to have something to you by next week.
Great.
And I'd like to get it published as quickly as we can, because Q2 just ended, so I don't want to be talking about Q2 in future.
Sounds good.
That's all I have.
Tina?
I think Chief Cassie's coming back up to the table, so I'll put the question out there and wait for him to come to the table for the response, but I think Travis may also be able to, help on this one. The Traffic Advisory Committee will probably on there, I have to, talk to Chief Stone about having it on the agenda, but with the with the change to 25 miles an hour, it affects 250 streets or so in town. Anybody has the ability to get that information to the commuting apps, like Google Maps, Waze, and so on, so that they can update their algorithms so that the driver who's looking to come through Holliston or is in Holliston will know that, 250 streets are now no longer 30, they're 25. That's a hands-on process that takes pushing that information out to the different commuting apps. At 250, that's quite a big project. So the question I have is there a high school intern who could perhaps provide some assistance for a project like this? And I think this is the right place to ask the question. If not, I can move it to the right place, but I was not...
How's your intern? We can look at that.
Yeah. I honestly didn't know. I don't have a high school student right now, so I don't know if they're running any internship programs, but this is something you could do remotely quite easily, I would think. So if there's a high school intern out that is working through town hall in any department and has an interest, I think that this would be a 2 to 3 day job kind of, project. I haven't seen the platform, I don't know how you know the information, but from what I understand, it's just a matter of updating through this portal.
When is TAC meeting?
We are meeting on the 13th, I think. I'll get to that in a minute.
Okay, I'll get you. We'll look at that.
Okay, thank you.
Chief, ready to join us?
I am,
A little follow-up?
yes.
Were you successful?
I was successful. I looked back through my old emails and I found the current vendor that we have who is on the state bid list. It's $900 a week or $1,200 a month. And that price includes delivery, programming, and pickup at the end of your contract term
Per unit.
per unit.
Are all the units the same size, Mike?
This is for the same style that we got out front, which is the 3-line, larger one on its own self-contained trailer. So depending on how many you're looking at, your range could be anywhere between $14,400 for 3 months for 4, up to $21,600 for 3 months for 6. Or
What do you recommend?
I would say based on what we have currently in inventory plus what we're expecting delivery of, I think that we could probably start with 4. And if we found after a month or two that 4 plus what we have,
Do you have a concept in your head? I think Ben brought this up, of like where they would land that is different than what we see now
yes.
in terms of path of travel and impact on motorists, pedestrians. What do you think?
So obviously the schools get a lot of traffic on a regular basis. We've mentioned Blair Square, but then we've got some specific neighborhoods where I think we could definitely target it on its way in. And we could move those around. After 2 weeks up Rolling Meadow, it can move down to Strawberry Hill, and we've got ones all over the place. Yes.
Travis, in terms of these resources being deployed in the winter, is this a burden on public works that we should be advised of, or is this just another day in the life of trailering a piece of equipment where it's needed?
It is interesting with the snow. I think if we could find some place where it doesn't require plowing around, would be ideal. Right out front here, we move it, we're using DPW that's also gearing up for a snowstorm type of thing. So we do run into some of those things, but I think that's on us to sort of come up with the best spot that doesn't require a lot of maintenance. I think we can certainly put our heads together and find some ideal locations.
4 of them for 4 months would be, what was your math?
4 for 3 months is $14,400.
Thoughts on that, Ben?
2 comments. I'd say, I'm fine with 4. I think what we need to do is we need to figure out, like, sort of a strategy where they're going to go and things like that. I don't want to say 4 because 4 is a number. I want to say 4 because these are the 4 locations that we could use them. Because 3 might be better, 2 might be better, 5 might be better. I don't know, but I'd like to see a strategy with that we could employ. And then the only other question I had was the rental. Is it you re-up each week, or is it something where we have to sign a contract for, say, several months?
We would commit to a month at a time if we were going to do
a month at a time. Okay.
And I agree with you that, and that's where I believe the chair had mentioned earlier, a vote to authorize not to exceed.
Yep.
So I think I could put together a deployment strategy and bring that back to you. I know I've got a meeting with town administrator later this week, but just as I had a social media sort of schedule that we had for a 8-week period, I could come back to you with a plan for 3 to 5 of these being deployed throughout town.
And the only other thing is that if we have monthly rentals, would there be a risk that, we have something rented and we decide to keep it up for another month and we didn't we want to make sure that we don't, like, lose it because we didn't re-up it.
They had quite a few in inventory.
They have quite a few in inventory, but I'm just sure, like, I just imagine that a lot of towns are doing this sometimes. Maybe I'm...
And this is a preferred model, from what I've heard on some of the conference calls with MEMA and FEMA. FEMA questions the need to purchase outright and adamantly pushes back and says, did you consider renting and why didn't you rent? So I think renting on a monthly basis is a much better plan than us saying, we should just outright purchase beyond what we've already authorized for town meeting for other purposes. Okay. That's all.
My only comment would be the length of time it stays in any one residential neighborhood. I think that that's something to be sensitive of when you come up with your deployment plan. I'm not sure every neighborhood is well suited to a big sign for a month, sitting there telling people, hey, we're watching, you know, you guys.
No,
I think it would have to
I'm
move
thinking a week to two.
right, okay,
for
fairly frequently, yeah, right, okay. That's my only comment.
Mike, your number was 14,000 for 3 months?
14,400.
14,400?
Yes.
I'll entertain a motion to approve up to $14,400 for the rental of signage boards, pursuant to a plan forthcoming from the fire chief on its deployment and use.
Make that motion?
Have a second?
I would feel more comfortable doing it if we actually had the plan before we did that, given the nature of the money. I thought am I misguided in that thinking that
I think we were trying to anticipate that the pandemic's urgency is moving us to act more quickly, and if we have to wait another week for a plan, we're missing an opportunity to use the messaging and deploy the devices.
To provide you the locations once we have them, for review next week as well?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I guess I'm just thinking like, we're sort of putting the cart before the horse.
We are.
For the process.
We're being urgent, yeah. That's
All right, okay, that's fine, I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That carries. Thanks, Mike.
It shall be done.
See you next week. Any other business this evening? You're good? You're good? Anybody from our Zoom call? At this moment, we are going to adjourn to executive session to discuss non-union contract discussions, and we will not be returning to open session. So I will entertain a motion to enter into executive session at this time for that purpose.
So moved.
I will second that.
I will say all those in favor, Mr. Searle, aye.
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 John Cronin, aye. The select board is now going into executive session. Hope you have a pleasant evening. We will catch you next week. Have a good night.